Hi, Monarch students. This is Ms. Kurganin, and I am going to briefly overview how to do KG's Economic Geography LAPTOPIA adventure. What is this, you say? Well, this is an online adventure I've created through a lot of different sites that I find interesting that will help teach you about economics and development around the world. So what do I have prepared for you? The first thing that I have right here is a video that you're going to watch from a guy named Hans Rosling. And he's a very famous geographer. He's recently passed, but he's going to talk about how the development of the world has been improving through time. And he's got this cool model with these little bubbles. So you're going to watch this 4-minute video. He's going to explain why things are improving around the world as people get more money, their life expectancy improves. They're going to live longer with money. Not that that's the answer to everything, but he's going to explain that. And you'll answer the questions here about Hans Rosling. And then he is known for creating the site called gapminder.org. And gapminder.org has the same type of bubbles. The bubbles, if you look, correspond to the different regions of the world. So green are the Americas, blue is the African continent, yellow is Europe, and then the red is Asia. And in this graph, this is going to compare life expectancy to income. And these GIFs, when you run them, and you may have to load the program, are going to show the bubbles moving, showing that as income improves, life expectancy also rises. And you'll be able to track countries and regions and analyze this. Now, I pause for a second because one of the countries that we're going to have you keep an eye on is Japan. And you are going to keep your eye on Japan and kind of follow what Japan does through time. And Japan really got whammied with World War II, if you know your US history, and then had to rebuild itself and went from a stage 2 to a stage 4, almost a 5 country in about 50 years. So you're going to track that and see what's going on with Japan. And then you're going to track life expectancy, and you're going to mess around, and instead of income, you are going to do, I think, total fertility rate, which I believe is under health. And so you're going to change the data to mess around with Gapminder. That's going to take you some time. Then, after you've messed around with Gapminder and you have analyzed Japan and run through those GIFs, then the next place that I'm going to have you go is called Dollar Street. And Dollar Street is a place where there's a lot of pictures. Oh, there it is. Also tied to Gapminder. They've really spent a lot of time at this organization trying to highlight inequality around the world. And I'm going to have you look at a bunch of pictures, but I really want you to focus on what do the homes look like and what do the toilets look like for the richest and poorest people of the world. So Dollar Street here, you can adjust the data. You can look at everybody's floors. You can look at it. Let's look at everybody's arm watches. And it'll change all of the pictures. Here's what the watches look like in the US, Colombia, Nepal, Ethiopia. But you're focusing on toilets and homes. But I find this fascinating because you can look at all kinds of things and how they vary and the amount of money. So here are the pets in Burundi, which looks like a little tiny mouse. The pets in China, which include these chickens and that pig, and this 6,342 dog. I guess that's what it would cost to care for that animal. So you're going to be comparing some questions in Dollar Street. Then the next gift that I've prepared for you is from the Census Bureau. And this is a simulation that you'll run that is looking at what are the wealthiest places of the United States. And right now, everybody here is showing 18,000, which is poverty line. So this is assuming that everybody here has at least people that are at the poverty line. But then as you run the simulation, there's going to be areas that fall off because they don't have as much money. And then you're going to look and see who's left for $110,000 at least a year. So it's called Islands of High Inequality. Then I have a favela. What is a favela? It's like a slum. It's what's called a slum in Brazil. And Rio de Janeiro has a lot of very famous slums that the government's like given up on. The government doesn't send the fire crew. The government doesn't send the police. So they have to like run their slum, their favela on their own. So I really think this is an interesting video where they've gone on inside the favela and interviewed people on how they make that work. So this is called People of the Hill. And so you're going to answer a couple questions about that. Then, if this sounds like a lot, well, it's because it's over a couple days. When you're watching that video about favelas, you'll be jotting down some notes about economics, like anything to do with money in that video, anything to do with people. You'll need 3 points about people, anything to do about the environment, anything to do about the politics and the government. Then, sorry about the bell. Then this is called the cartographs, and this is what you're going to do with me in small group, and then you'll finish on your own. It's at worldmapper.com. And these cartographs are maps of the world where they have shrunken or increased the size of the countries based on the amount of data. So like here is coronavirus cases. So if I look at this map, I'm kind of waiting for it to load here. If it's large, that means there's a lot of coronavirus cases. And if it's small and kind of scrunched, then there's not as many corona cases. And so this is called a cartogram. And you're going to analyze different cartograms for a bunch of different topics. And then you're going to look for patterns. What do you notice as the countries? I mean, yes, you could look at pumpkin production, but I really had more important topics like who's got sanitation and who's got water and who's living in absolute poverty. So we're going to do some of these together in our small groups, and then I'll let you finish on your own. Okay, we're almost done. In the last tasks of this adventure, I think this is just a darling video. So I'm going to have you watch the first world problems. What is a first world problem? That's where you're living in a stage 4 developed country and your problems are not that you're dying in warfare or you're dying of diarrhea or you're dying because you don't have anything to eat. So to keep it in perspective, these kids are going to talk to you about their first world problems. I just think it's clever and ironic. All right. And then lastly, is I'm going to ask you to summarize. After you traveled all these different websites, you analyze this data, I would like you to make 2 general observations about economic development around the world. Would you please make sure that your last 2 observations are in complete sentences where the rest of this note sheet are just taking notes and observations. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can figure out how to put you guys in small groups on the Google Meet so you could actually work with other kids on this LAPTOPIA. If my Google Meets don't work, then you'll have to work with us on your own. And it'll take 2 days, so we're going to do this over Thursday and Friday. But thanks for listening. Good luck. I'm here if you have questions, and I hope you find this super interesting. I think a lot of these sites are fascinating. Thanks. Bye. And I never know how to shut this off right. And I gotta mess with it. I gotta shut it off. No. Okay. Well, maybe not. Try this. No.